Hey guys, tonight we're exploring a story that everyone in history should know. The story is How Women Spent Evenings Before Candles Existed. You get comfortable. Take a moment, like the video, and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. How Women Spent Evenings. Before candles existed, imagine that the sun has almost disappeared below the edge of the world. The warm colors of the afternoon are slowly fading into soft shades of blue and gray. The air has become cooler, and the sounds of busy work are beginning to quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sings one final evening song before settling into its nest. A gentle breeze carries the scent of fresh earth, wood smoke, and nearby water. Tonight, you are not surrounded by electric lights or glowing screens. There are no bright windows shining across a city. In fact, there may not even be a candle waiting to be lit. Instead, you find yourself stepping quietly into a much older evening. Welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Allow your breathing to slow as we gently travel back through history, to a time when darkness arrived not as an inconvenience, but as a familiar guest. Tonight, we will quietly explore how women spent their evenings before candles became a common part of everyday life. Picture yourself walking toward a small settlement thousands of years ago. The homes are simple, built from materials gathered nearby. Some walls are made from woven branches covered with clay. Others are built from stone or packed earth. Roofs are covered with reeds, straw, or wooden beams. The last golden light of the day slips across the landscape. Women know this light well. It is precious, because once it disappears, many daily tasks become difficult. There is no switch to brighten a room. Every remaining moment of daylight matters. The evening does not begin suddenly. It arrives slowly, almost gently. Shadows grow longer. Children finish their games. Farmers return from fields. Hunters appear along narrow paths carrying simple tools. Animals are gathered close to their shelters. The pace of life naturally slows. Imagine standing beside one of these women as she finishes her final outdoor task. Perhaps she gathers herbs hanging near the doorway. Maybe she shakes dust from woven baskets or checks drying fish suspended beneath a shelter. Every movement is careful because she knows daylight is nearly gone. Long before candles became common in many parts of the world, people depended almost entirely upon the sun. Fire certainly existed. Hearths burned inside homes. Torches were sometimes used outdoors. Oil lamps appeared in several ancient civilizations. Yet candles made from beeswax or animal fat were often expensive, uncommon, or reserved for wealthier households and religious settings. For many ordinary families across different places and centuries, evening remained a naturally dark part of life. This darkness shaped daily routines in ways that can feel surprising today. You find yourself entering one of the homes. The doorway is low. Inside, the air carries the comforting smell of wood smoke mixed with cooked grain. The room is dim, but not completely dark. The open hearth gives off a soft orange glow, that gently dances across the walls. Faces appear only when they turn toward the fire. The light is uneven, creating quiet pockets of shadow throughout the room. Objects near the flames become clear for a moment, before disappearing again into darkness. For the women gathered here, this is completely ordinary. Imagine sitting beside them. No one seems rushed. No one complains that the room is too dark. Their eyes have spent a lifetime adjusting to evenings like this. They understand every familiar corner of the house without needing bright light. One woman slowly stirs a clay pot hanging above the fire. Another carefully repairs a woven basket by feeling each strand with practiced fingers. A grandmother gently untangles wool, preparing it for spinning another day. Even in dim light, experienced hands remember movements learned over many years. Children slowly gather close to their mothers and grandmothers. As darkness deepens outside, families naturally come closer together indoors. Evening becomes a time not only for rest, but also for companionship. There is something peaceful about this gathering. No one competes with distant entertainment. No bright lamps invite people to continue working late into the night. Nature quietly encourages everyone to slow down. Imagine listening carefully. You hear the crackle of burning wood. You hear soft conversation carried in calm voices. Someone laughs quietly after remembering a small event from earlier that day. A child asks a question. An older woman begins answering, not with a short reply, but with a story. Stories become one of the greatest treasures of these evenings. Long before books filled shelves, history often lived inside memory. Women played an important part in preserving that memory. Around countless evening fires across different cultures, they repeated family histories, seasonal traditions, practical knowledge, and ancient legends. A young girl listening beside the fire might hear how her grandmother survived a difficult winter many years before. She might learn why certain stars appear during planting season. She could hear which herbs soothe an aching stomach, or which berries should never be gathered. These lessons are shared naturally, wrapped inside gentle conversation, rather than formal teaching. Picture yourself watching the youngest children. Their eyes slowly grow heavy. Outside, darkness has now settled completely across the landscape. The world beyond the doorway seems much larger at night. Forests become mysterious. Rivers sound louder. Wind moving through tall grass seems softer and deeper. Inside the home, however, warmth remains. The fire becomes the heart of the evening. Women continue caring for those around them, although their work has changed. Instead of harvesting crops or carrying water, they now comfort tired children, prepare sleeping spaces, mend simple clothing, or quietly organize tomorrow's supplies. Many tasks rely more upon touch than sight. Experienced fingers know exactly where each tool belongs. A woven mat is folded. Clay bowls are stacked. Bundles of herbs are tied together. Nothing feels hurried. Imagine reaching toward the fire. Its warmth gently reaches your hands, while cool night air slips through tiny openings in the walls. Smoke slowly rises upward before escaping through the roof. The rhythm feels ancient. Across thousands of years and countless communities, evenings like this repeated themselves again and again. Not every society looked the same, of course. In ancient Egypt, some wealthier households used oil lamps filled with plant oils, allowing limited light after sunset. Along the Mediterranean, small clay lamps gradually became common in many regions. In parts of Northern Europe, hearth fires remained the main source of evening light for ordinary families during much of history. Across Asia, Africa, and the Americas, different communities developed their own ways of extending light, depending upon available materials and local traditions. Yet for many women, regardless of place, darkness still encouraged similar habits: conversation, quiet work, family, reflection, rest. Imagine sitting beside an elderly woman whose face has softened through many decades of experience. She watches the flames without speaking for several moments. Then she begins humming a melody. No one asks her to perform. The song simply belongs to the evening. Soon, another voice quietly joins, then another. The music is gentle, without instruments, carried only by human voices and the steady rhythm of breathing. Songs help pass traditions from one generation to another. Some celebrate harvests. Some remember ancestors. Some comfort restless children. Others simply make the darkness feel friendly. You find yourself relaxing more deeply. Outside, the stars continue filling the sky. Without bright cities, the heavens appear astonishingly clear. Women often knew these stars well. Certain constellations helped mark changing seasons. The rising of particular stars could signal planting, fishing, migration, or approaching weather. Although formal astronomy is often associated with priests or scholars, ordinary women living close to nature also became careful observers of the night sky through everyday experience. As the evening grows quieter, conversation slowly fades. Children sleep first. Adults remain awake a little longer. Tomorrow's work begins early. Before dawn, someone will fetch water. Someone will grind grain. Someone will tend animals. Someone will prepare the morning meal. Everyone understands this rhythm. There is comfort in knowing what tomorrow will bring. As the fire slowly settles into glowing embers, the room becomes even quieter. Imagine lying down beneath woven blankets or animal skins. The air is cool, but the remaining warmth of the hearth gently fills the room. Outside, insects sing their endless nighttime chorus. Somewhere nearby, an owl calls into the darkness. The stars continue their silent journey overhead. There are no candles burning through the night. There is only darkness, warmth, memory, and the quiet confidence that morning will return once again. And as sleep slowly finds the people gathered around this ancient home, our own gentle journey through history has only just begun. The fire has grown quieter now. Only a few glowing embers remain beneath the soft layer of gray ash, gently releasing their warmth into the room. Most of the children have drifted into peaceful sleep, wrapped beneath woven blankets or simple animal skins. Their breathing has become slow and steady, blending with the faint whisper of the wind outside. You remain awake for a little while longer. Imagine opening the small wooden door, just enough to step outside. The cool night air brushes gently across your face. Above you stretches a sky filled with more stars than most people today have ever seen. There are no glowing streets, no bright windows, and no distant engines. The Milky Way forms a pale river across the darkness, so clear that it almost seems close enough to touch. For many women throughout history, this sky was a familiar companion. Long before clocks measured the passing hours, the heavens quietly marked the seasons. The position of certain stars helped people understand when warmer days would return, when rains might arrive, or when the time for harvesting was drawing near. No one speaks loudly beneath such a sky. Silence itself feels valuable. You find yourself walking beside a young woman carrying a small woven basket. She is not searching for food tonight. Instead, she checks herbs that have been left outside to dry beneath a simple shelter. The evening air is cooler than the afternoon, and some plants dry more gently after the heat of the day has passed. She touches each bundle carefully. A handful of mint, fragrant thyme, wild chamomile, perhaps lavender, depending on the land and the century. These herbs will flavor meals, soothe illness, or bring comfort during long winters. She knows each plant not because she has read about it, but because her mother once placed the same leaves into her own small hands many years before. Knowledge travels quietly through generations. There are no classrooms here. There are no written notebooks resting on shelves. Instead, memory becomes a living library. Imagine sitting beside an older grandmother as she gently untangles a basket of wool. Even in the fading glow of the fire, her fingers move confidently. She hardly needs to see each strand. Her hands remember. They have repeated these same gentle motions through thousands upon thousands of evenings. The younger women watch closely. No formal lesson is announced. Instead, learning happens through simple observation. One daughter notices how tightly the fibers should be twisted. Another learns how to recognize weaker threads before they break. A granddaughter quietly copies every movement without realizing she is already preparing for the years ahead. The room remains peaceful. Outside, somewhere beyond the fields, a fox gives a brief call into the darkness. No one seems alarmed. The sounds of nature belong to the night, just as birdsong belongs to the morning. Picture yourself inside another home, this time in a small farming village many centuries later. Although the place is different, the feeling remains surprisingly familiar. The house is built from timber rather than packed earth. Thick wooden beams support the roof, while woven reeds help protect against cold winds. The evening meal has already been shared. Simple bread rests inside a woven basket. A clay bowl still carries the pleasant aroma of barley soup mixed with onions and herbs. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest piece of bread may become tomorrow's breakfast. Women carefully store every remaining bit of food. They understand how uncertain future harvests can be. Good years are welcomed with gratitude. Poor years are endured with patience. As darkness settles outside, practical work gradually gives way to quieter activities. Some women continue spinning thread. Others carefully repair worn clothing. A loose seam is strengthened. A small tear is patched. A child's tunic is adjusted so it may fit for another season. Every stitch represents time saved and resources protected. Clothing is far too valuable to discard. Imagine how different this evening feels from the modern world. There are no endless tasks waiting beneath bright electric lights. Nature gently reminds everyone that rest is necessary. When darkness deepens, work naturally becomes slower. The body follows rhythms that people rarely question. Women often rose before sunrise. Their evenings therefore became moments of recovery rather than endless productivity. As the hours pass, conversation changes. Earlier discussions about work slowly give way to memories. An elderly woman remembers the spring floods from many years ago. Someone recalls the celebration of a successful harvest. Another laughs softly while telling the story of a stubborn goat that wandered into a neighbor's garden. These ordinary moments become family history. Not every memory concerns kings or battles. Most history, after all, belongs to ordinary people. It belongs to mothers who baked bread before dawn, grandmothers who gathered herbs after rainfall, young girls who carried water from nearby streams, sisters who sang together while weaving cloth. These quiet lives rarely appeared in written records, yet they shaped every generation that followed. Imagine listening as one woman begins humming an old lullaby. The melody is simple. It rises and falls as gently as breathing. Soon, another joins her. No audience applauds. The song exists simply because singing makes the evening feel warmer. Across the ancient world, women preserved countless songs that celebrated seasons, welcomed newborn children, comforted the grieving, and marked the passing years. Many melodies changed little over generations. Some survived for centuries before anyone thought to write them down. The songs carried more than music. They carried memory itself. Outside, clouds slowly drift across the moon. The landscape grows darker for a few quiet moments. Without moonlight, the world almost disappears beyond the doorway. Yet inside the home, no one seems troubled. Darkness is expected. It is familiar. It signals that another day has reached its peaceful conclusion. You find yourself watching the youngest child stir gently in sleep. His mother quietly adjusts the blanket without fully waking him. The movement is small, almost silent. Acts of care like this have happened in homes across every century. Although languages changed, clothing changed, and buildings changed, the gentle kindness of mothers remained wonderfully familiar. The fire has now become a bed of glowing coals. Soft orange light flickers across the wooden walls. The smell of smoke lingers pleasantly in the air, mixing with wool, dried herbs, and freshly baked bread. Outside, dew begins forming across the grass. Somewhere far away, water flows steadily through a quiet stream. The night feels endless, yet peaceful. As the morning slowly arrives, the eastern horizon will slowly exchange darkness for pale silver light. The women sleeping peacefully tonight will rise before the sun once again, ready to greet another day shaped by nature rather than by clocks. But for now, there is nowhere else to be, only the warmth of the fading fire, the comfort of familiar voices now resting, and the timeless silence that has gently embraced humanity for thousands of years. Our quiet journey through these ancient evenings has only just begun. Imagine that only a few hours have passed. The night is still wrapped around the little home, soft and quiet, as though the world itself has settled into peaceful sleep. The fire has almost disappeared beneath a blanket of pale ash, but hidden underneath, a few tiny embers continue to glow like distant stars. They are carefully protected, because creating a new fire from nothing is slow and difficult. In many ancient households, preserving the evening fire through the night was almost as important as preparing tomorrow's food. You find yourself lying awake for a moment, listening rather than looking. The darkness is complete. Without bright light, your ears slowly begin to notice details that usually go unheard. The gentle breathing of sleeping children, the occasional creak of wooden beams adjusting to the cooler night air. A quiet rustle as someone turns beneath a blanket. Far beyond the walls, an owl calls once before silence returns. For countless women throughout history, these sounds were deeply familiar. They were not signs of loneliness. They were simply the peaceful language of the night. Imagine that the first faint hint of dawn is still many hours away. An older woman quietly rises from her sleeping place. She does not wish to wake the children. Moving slowly, she reaches the hearth with practiced confidence. Her hands know exactly where the stored pieces of dry wood have been placed. She gently stirs the warm ashes until a tiny red glow appears beneath them. Patiently, she feeds the ember a few dry twigs. A thin ribbon of smoke rises. Then a small flame appears. There is no hurry. Fire rewards patience. Within a few moments, the room begins to warm once again. This quiet task was repeated across generations. In many places, women became the daily guardians of the household fire. It warmed the family, cooked meals, dried clothing, and offered comfort during cold nights. Before dependable lighting became common, the hearth was far more than a place to prepare food. It was the heart of the home itself. Picture yourself watching the first signs of morning slowly appear through a small opening in the wall. The darkness does not disappear all at once. Instead, the black sky gently becomes deep blue, then soft gray, then pale silver. As the morning slowly arrives, the shapes inside the home slowly return. The woven baskets become visible. Clay pots emerge from the shadows. Hanging bundles of herbs reveal their familiar colors once more. The day begins not with sudden brightness, but with gentle patience. The women of the household welcome this light. It allows their work to continue naturally. One young woman steps outside carrying 2 empty clay jars. The grass is cool beneath her feet. Tiny drops of dew sparkle across every leaf. The air smells clean after the long night. She follows a familiar path toward a nearby spring. This journey is one she has made hundreds of times before. Along the way, she meets another woman from a neighboring home. Neither speaks loudly. Morning seems to invite quieter voices. They exchange gentle greetings before filling their jars with clear water. These short conversations are important. News travels from family to family this way. Someone mentions that wild berries have begun to ripen. Another shares that sheep have safely given birth during the night. Someone else quietly wonders if rain may arrive before week's end. History often remembers kings, queens, and great battles. Yet the daily exchange of ordinary knowledge helped entire communities survive. Imagine returning with them to the village. Smoke now rises gently from several homes. Roosters announce the new day. Dogs stretch lazily after the night's rest. Children slowly awaken. The peaceful evening has given everyone enough rest to begin another day. But our story is about evenings, and to understand them fully, we must first understand the rhythm of the entire day. Without dependable candles, Daylight became incredibly valuable. Women planned many activities around the movement of the sun: grinding grain, preparing food, collecting firewood, washing clothing, gathering medicinal plants, caring for gardens, weaving cloth, looking after children. All of these tasks were easier beneath natural light. As afternoon slowly drifted toward evening, priorities changed. Anything requiring careful vision needed to be completed before darkness returned. This daily rhythm shaped life for thousands of years. Picture yourself several centuries later in another part of the world. This home stands among rolling hills where sheep graze peacefully throughout the day. The family keeps bees nearby. Their honey is treasured. So is the wax. Beeswax could be made into beautiful candles, but these were precious. Producing enough wax required healthy colonies and careful work. In many places, beeswax candles were expensive enough that churches, wealthy households, or important ceremonies used them far more often than ordinary families. Most evenings still depended mainly upon the hearth. The women understand this well. They save valuable resources whenever possible. Nothing is wasted. Not a scrap of cloth. Not a handful of grain. Not even the smallest piece of wax. Imagine one woman carefully wrapping a tiny piece of beeswax inside cloth. She smiles gently. Perhaps it will be used during a wedding. Perhaps during the birth of a child. Perhaps during an important winter celebration. Special light is saved for special moments. Ordinary evenings remain beautifully simple. As sunset approaches once again, the village slowly changes. Workers return from fields. Children collect scattered toys carved from wood. Animals wander back toward familiar shelters. The sky turns golden. Women prepare the evening meal with quiet efficiency. Steam rises from simple pots. Fresh bread cools upon wooden boards. Someone slices onions. Another washes root vegetables. The pleasant smell of herbs fills the cool evening air. The meal is shared slowly. Conversation comes easily after a long day of work. No one rushes away. The fading daylight encourages families to remain together just a little longer outdoors. Some women continue shelling beans while talking with neighbors. Others braid one another's hair. A grandmother carefully rocks the youngest child in her arms while watching the changing colors of the sky. No one speaks about wasting time. This quiet togetherness is part of life itself. Eventually, the final glow of sunset slips below the horizon. Darkness returns, just as it has for countless generations before. The fire inside each home begins its familiar dance across the walls. Women gather close once again. The day's labor slowly transforms into peaceful conversation. Hands continue small tasks that can be completed by memory rather than sight. Someone twists cord from plant fibers. Another smooths rough wooden handles with careful fingers. An older woman gently teaches a little girl how to recognize different textures of wool simply by touch. Learning continues even after daylight has disappeared, not through books, but through patient example. Imagine sitting quietly among them. No one notices the passing hours. There are no clocks to check. Only the gentle rhythm of breathing, the crackling fire, and the comforting certainty that morning will return once again. Outside, The stars slowly wheel across the night sky, just as they have for thousands of years. Inside, the warmth of family fills the darkness far more completely than any candle ever could. And as another peaceful evening settles over the ancient world, our gentle journey through history continues, one quiet night at a time. Imagine another evening arriving, not with sudden darkness, but with a slow and graceful farewell from the sun. The afternoon has been long, filled with steady work beneath an open sky. Now the light softens across the fields, touching every stone, every tree, and every rooftop with warm shades of gold. Birds make their final flights before settling among branches, while insects begin their quiet chorus in the tall grass. You find yourself walking along a narrow footpath beside a woman carrying a woven basket over one arm. The basket is much lighter than it was earlier in the day. Most of its contents have already been brought home. A few onions remain, several handfuls of herbs, a small bundle of flax waiting to be dried. She walks at an unhurried pace, greeting neighbors as they pass. There is no need to hurry now. The hardest work has already been completed while daylight was strong. As she reaches her home, the familiar rhythm of evening quietly begins once more. The youngest children help gather kindling from a dry stack beneath the shelter. An older daughter shakes dust from woven sleeping mats. Someone brings fresh water inside before darkness makes the journey less comfortable. These simple preparations happen almost without conversation. Everyone knows their place. Everyone understands what evening asks of them. Imagine stepping inside the house. The warmth of the day still lingers in the thick earthen walls. Clay jars stand neatly against one side of the room. A wooden table, worn smooth by many years of use, waits for the evening meal. The hearth has already been prepared. Only a few careful movements are needed before flames begin to dance once again. Their light is gentle. It does not chase every shadow from the room. Instead, it shares the space with darkness, allowing both to exist together. Perhaps this is why ancient evenings often felt calmer than our own. The darkness was never treated as an enemy. It was simply another part of the day. Picture yourself sitting beside the fire. The woman reaches for a bundle of flax gathered earlier. During daylight, much of the difficult work has already been done. Now she gently separates the fibers, preparing them for spinning on another day. Her hands move with remarkable confidence. She rarely needs to look down. The work has become part of her memory. Many women developed this quiet skill after years of practice. Their fingers could judge the smoothness of thread, the strength of woven cloth, or the softness of wool almost without relying on sight. Knowledge lived not only in the mind, it also lived in the hands. Nearby, a grandmother quietly begins carving a small wooden toy for one of the younger children. The carving is simple, perhaps a tiny bird, perhaps a sheep, perhaps a little horse with rounded legs. She works slowly, making only a few careful cuts before placing the piece aside. Fine carving requires good daylight. Evening encourages patience instead. Nothing must be finished tonight. It can always wait for tomorrow's sun. Imagine listening as conversation slowly fills the room. One woman remembers the first harvest after a long season of drought. Another recalls the winter when snow remained on the ground much longer than expected. An older neighbor smiles as she tells the story of her own wedding many years ago. The younger women listen with quiet attention. There are no photographs, no written diaries. Memory itself becomes the family album. Each story is polished gently through repetition, becoming smoother with every generation that hears it. Some details change, others remain wonderfully constant. The laughter, the weather, the kindness of neighbors, the birth of children, the sadness of farewells. These ordinary moments become the true history of everyday life. Picture yourself outside once again. The sky is now covered with countless stars. The moon has not yet risen. Without its light, the landscape almost disappears into darkness. Even so, many women could still find their way along familiar paths. Years of experience taught them where each stone rested beneath their feet, where each fence turned, and where the stream crossed the meadow. The land itself became familiar through memory. In many communities, evenings also offered rare moments of quiet reflection. A woman might sit outside for a few moments after the meal, simply listening. The cool air carries the scent of damp earth and distant pine trees. A gentle breeze moves across nearby fields. Somewhere, water flows steadily over smooth stones. She says very little. She simply watches the stars. Modern life often encourages constant activity. Ancient evenings offered something different. They created space for silence. Silence was not empty. It was filled with the sounds of nature, the rustling leaves, the singing insects, the distant call of night birds, the soft breathing of sleeping animals. Imagine traveling much farther, across another continent, where evenings unfold beneath warmer skies. The houses look different. The language is different. The clothing has changed. Yet something remains familiar. Women gather together once the day's work is finished. Some continue weaving beautiful baskets from fresh reeds. Others braid strong fibers into rope. Several gently prepare grain for tomorrow's meal. Children sit nearby, watching closely. Skills pass naturally from one generation to the next. No formal lesson begins. Learning happens simply because everyone shares the same space. A little girl reaches toward a bundle of reeds. Her mother quietly adjusts the way she holds them. No criticism, only gentle guidance. Years later, that same child will teach another pair of small hands. So the knowledge continues. Imagine the pleasant smell of fresh bread lingering in the air. Someone places a clay lid over tomorrow's dough. Another carefully covers milk to protect it during the night. A basket of dried apples is moved farther from curious mice. Every object has its place. Order makes tomorrow's work easier. Women often carried the responsibility of remembering these countless small details. Where the herbs were drying, which grain should be used first, how much flour remained, whether enough firewood had been gathered before the next rain. These quiet forms of planning rarely appeared in written history, yet they shaped everyday survival. The fire burns lower. Its bright flames slowly become glowing coals. Faces soften in the warm orange light. Children begin rubbing sleepy eyes. One by one, they curl beneath blankets. An older sister gently brushes loose hair away from her younger brother's face. Their mother smiles without saying a word. The smallest gestures often speak most clearly. Imagine the peaceful feeling that settles over the home. No one wonders what messages have arrived. No clock reminds them of unfinished work. The night belongs to rest. The darkness invites stillness. Outside, clouds drift slowly across the stars before quietly moving on. The wind grows softer. Even the insects seem calmer now. Inside, only the gentle crackling of the hearth remains. The women finish their final conversations in quiet voices. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another day of work, another evening of gentle companionship. The rhythm has remained unchanged for generations, carried forward by countless ordinary women whose names history may never have recorded, yet whose daily lives built families, preserved traditions, and quietly shaped the world. You find yourself growing sleepy beside the warm hearth, surrounded by peaceful voices that slowly fade into silence. The stars continue their patient journey across the heavens. The fire glows softly, and another ancient evening comes to its quiet and comforting end. Imagine that tonight the sky is perfectly clear. Not a single cloud drifts above the quiet village. The stars shine with a calm brightness, and the moon has not yet risen. The darkness feels deep, but it is not frightening. It is simply the kind of darkness that people knew for thousands of years, long before streets were filled with lamps and homes glowed with electric light. You find yourself sitting just outside a modest home, where the last warmth of the day still lingers in the stones beneath your feet. Nearby, the evening fire sends a faint ribbon of smoke into the cool air. The scent of burning oak mixes gently with the fragrance of drying herbs hanging beneath the roof. Inside the house, the women are finishing the final small tasks of the day. No one is rushing. The pace of the evening is slow, almost like the steady rhythm of breathing itself. One woman carefully folds a woven cloth that took many weeks to complete. Another gently checks a basket filled with onions and garlic, making sure they remain dry for the weeks ahead. A young girl quietly places smooth stones around the edge of a clay jar to keep its cover secure. Each movement is simple. Each movement has purpose. Imagine watching the oldest woman in the family. Her hands show the marks of many seasons spent working beneath the sun. The lines across her face are soft, shaped by years of smiling, worrying, laughing, and caring for those around her. She sits close to the hearth, holding a spindle. With slow, practiced movements, she twists loose wool into fine thread. Even in the gentle glow of the fire, her fingers rarely hesitate. She has done this so many times that her hands seem to remember, without asking her eyes for help. A small granddaughter watches from nearby. She says nothing. She simply observes. The little girl notices how the spindle turns. She notices how gently the wool is pulled. She notices that patience matters more than speed. Without realizing it, she is already learning. This is how countless skills traveled through generations, not through written instructions, not through formal schools, but through evenings shared together. Picture yourself looking toward the doorway. Beyond it, the night stretches across quiet fields. Somewhere in the distance, sheep settle together for warmth. A horse shifts its weight inside a wooden shelter. The leaves of nearby trees whisper softly whenever the wind passes through them. Nature never becomes completely silent. Instead, it offers a peaceful collection of small sounds that gently replace the busy voices of the day. For many women, these evening sounds became deeply comforting. They marked the safe return of another day. Imagine another family living hundreds of miles away in a very different landscape. Perhaps their home stands beside a wide river. Perhaps it rests near thick forests. Perhaps the air carries the salty scent of a distant sea. Although their language is different and their customs are unique, evening still brings familiar moments. The day's work slows. The family gathers. Stories begin. An older sister tells the younger children about the first spring she remembers. She describes tiny flowers pushing through melting snow. She remembers the cheerful return of birds after a long winter. The children listen carefully. They smile. These stories are not grand legends. They are ordinary memories. Yet ordinary memories often become the strongest threads connecting one generation to the next. Imagine sitting quietly among them. The firelight gently moves across everyone's faces. Sometimes the room grows completely silent for several minutes. No one feels uncomfortable. Silence is welcome. It allows tired minds to rest. It gives people time to think. Modern evenings are often filled with constant noise. Ancient evenings offered something much quieter. There was space simply to exist. Space to listen. Space to remember. Space to breathe. As the fire settles lower, another woman reaches for a bundle of dried herbs hanging from a wooden beam. She carefully removes a few leaves and places them into warm water. The pleasant fragrance slowly fills the room. Across many cultures, women gathered plants that could comfort a sore throat, calm an uneasy stomach, or simply create a soothing drink before sleep. Their knowledge came from careful observation over many generations. Some remedies worked well. Others gradually disappeared as experience taught better methods. Learning was slow, but it continued year after year. Picture yourself helping prepare tomorrow's breakfast. Grain is measured carefully. A clay bowl is covered with cloth. A grinding stone is placed where it can easily be reached after sunrise. These quiet preparations save precious time in the morning. Evening often became the moment to think gently about tomorrow. Not with worry, simply with thoughtful care. Women frequently carried this quiet responsibility. They remembered which child needed warmer clothing, which neighbor might need help after an illness, which seeds should be planted first, which foods should be eaten before they spoiled. These countless small decisions held families together. History rarely recorded such details, yet daily life depended upon them. Imagine that someone begins humming once again. It is a melody without hurry. The tune rises gently before settling once more, almost like the wind moving through tall grass. Soon, another voice joins. The harmony is simple. There are no performers, no audience, only family members sharing a peaceful evening together. Music has always belonged to ordinary people as much as to kings and great halls. Many songs were never written. They lived only in memory. Some disappeared forever. Others quietly survived because mothers sang them to daughters, and daughters later sang them to children of their own. Outside, the moon slowly rises above the horizon. Its pale light spreads gently across the fields. The path leading toward the well becomes visible once again. The rooftops shine softly beneath the silver glow. The world feels different beneath moonlight. Shadows become longer. Trees seem taller. The quiet becomes deeper. You find yourself standing outside for a few peaceful moments. Looking upward, you notice how the stars appear to move ever so slowly across the heavens. Of course, it is the earth that turns beneath them, though the people of long ago understood the sky through the knowledge available to them. Even without modern astronomy, many communities carefully observed the heavens. Women often recognized the familiar appearance of seasonal stars simply because they watched them year after year while carrying out evening routines. The night sky became another calendar, one that never needed to be written down. As the hours pass, sleep gently settles over the household. The youngest children have long since fallen asleep. Older family members speak only in whispers now. One by one, they prepare their sleeping places. Blankets are shaken. Wood is gently pushed closer to the glowing coals so that a little warmth remains until dawn. The door is secured against the cool night air. The final conversation fades into comfortable silence. Imagine lying beside the slowly dying fire. Its warmth reaches you one last time before sleep arrives. Beyond the walls, the stars continue their endless journey. The moon quietly climbs higher into the night. A gentle breeze moves through the trees. Somewhere nearby, a stream flows with patient certainty, just as it did yesterday, and just as it will tomorrow. In homes across countless generations, women ended their evenings in much the same peaceful way, with quiet work completed, with loved ones close beside them, with hope for another sunrise, and with the comforting understanding that even the darkest night would always, in time, give way to morning. As your own eyes begin to feel heavier, the ancient world grows softer around you, inviting you to rest beside its gentle fire for just a little while longer. Imagine that a soft rain has begun to fall. Not a heavy storm, but a quiet, steady rain that taps gently against the roof above you. Tiny drops slide from the edges of the thatch, forming little pools in the earth outside. The scent of damp soil drifts through the cool evening air, carrying with it the fresh fragrance of wet grass and nearby trees. Inside the home, everyone has gathered a little closer to the hearth. Rainy evenings often encouraged families to remain indoors. The outside world became softer, quieter, and more distant. The warm glow of the fire felt even more welcoming against the cool darkness beyond the walls. You find yourself settling onto a simple wooden stool beside the fire. A young woman adds another small piece of dry wood to the glowing embers. She is careful not to use too much. Firewood requires effort to collect, especially after days of rain, and every piece has value. The flames brighten for a few moments before returning to their gentle dance. Their light reaches only a short distance. Beyond it, the room quietly disappears into shadow. For centuries, this was the ordinary appearance of evening. Darkness was accepted rather than defeated. Imagine watching an elderly woman carefully untie a bundle of dried flowers hanging from a beam above her head. She smiles as their familiar scent fills the room. Perhaps they were gathered during midsummer, when the fields were bright with blossoms and the air buzzed with bees. Now, months later, those same flowers still offer a little reminder of warmer days. Across many cultures, women dried flowers and herbs, not only for cooking or healing, but also because they connected each season to the next. Summer quietly remained present during winter. The memory of sunshine lingered long after the leaves had fallen. Picture yourself listening to the rain. There is something deeply calming about its rhythm. The children seem to think so too. One little boy rests his head against his mother's shoulder. A small girl curls beneath a wool blanket while watching the fire with sleepy eyes. Their mother gently strokes their hair without saying a word. Comfort is often silent. These simple moments happened in homes across countless generations. They were never recorded in royal chronicles. No historian wrote their names into great books. Yet these quiet acts of kindness shaped childhoods, strengthened families, and gave comfort after long days of work. Imagine another village, this one resting near a broad river. Evening arrives here in much the same way. Fishing boats have already been pulled safely onto the shore. Nets hang from wooden poles to dry. The smell of fresh water mixes with the smoke rising from cooking fires. Women sit together mending fishing nets. Their fingers move patiently through the tangled cords. Occasionally, one pauses to help another untie a stubborn knot. They speak softly while they work. Conversation drifts from one subject to another. Someone wonders whether the river will rise after tonight's rain. Another remembers a particularly cold winter many years ago. A grandmother laughs gently as she recalls teaching her eldest daughter to paddle a small boat for the first time. The younger women listen closely. Experience is shared naturally. No one announces that a lesson has begun. Knowledge simply flows through conversation, as quietly as the nearby river itself. Imagine looking toward the doorway once again. The rain has almost stopped. Only a few drops continue falling from the roof. Clouds slowly drift apart, revealing patches of clear sky. One bright star appears, then another. Soon the heavens are filled with familiar points of light once again. Many women became careful observers of these changes. Living close to nature meant noticing the smallest signs. The smell of rain before it arrived. The direction of the wind, the shape of gathering clouds, the first appearance of migrating birds, the color of sunrise. These observations were practical. They helped families prepare for changing weather, planting seasons, and travel. Picture yourself beside a woman who is weaving a small basket. The reeds bend gently beneath her fingers. Each strip crosses another in a careful pattern. The work cannot be rushed. If one reed breaks, she simply replaces it and continues. There is no frustration, only patience. Perhaps this quiet patience is one of the greatest lessons these evenings offered. Life moved more slowly. Many things required time. Thread had to be spun. Cloth had to be woven. Seeds had to grow. Children had to learn. Nothing important happened overnight. Imagine a little girl watching the basket take shape. She reaches out to help. Her first attempt is uneven. The reeds slip apart. She looks disappointed for only a moment. The older woman smiles kindly. She gently guides the child's hands. Together they begin again. No harsh words, no hurry, only another opportunity to learn. This peaceful rhythm of teaching continued across generations. Skills were not expected to appear instantly. They grew slowly, just as young trees slowly became forests. The fire burns steadily now. A clay pot hangs above it, warming a simple evening drink. Steam rises gently into the cool air. The pleasant aroma of herbs fills the room. Someone quietly passes wooden cups from one pair of hands to another. The drink is warm rather than hot, comforting rather than luxurious. It is enough. Imagine taking a slow sip. Outside, frogs begin singing after the rain. Their chorus echoes softly across nearby ponds. An occasional cricket joins them. The night seems alive, yet wonderfully peaceful. Without machines or distant traffic, every natural sound feels clear. Women who spent their lives close to the land came to know these sounds well. The first frogs often announced changing seasons. Certain birds called only during particular months. Even insects quietly marked the passing of the year. Nature became a gentle calendar that surrounded everyday life. As the evening grows later, conversation gradually becomes quieter. The youngest children are already asleep. An older daughter quietly folds several pieces of clothing that have dried beside the fire. Her mother checks tomorrow's grain one final time. An elderly grandmother whispers a short blessing of gratitude before lying down to rest. Across many ancient cultures, evening often included moments of thankfulness, reflection, or prayer. The exact words varied from place to place. The traditions were different, yet the feeling was often similar. Another day had ended safely. Another sunrise, if fortune allowed, would come again. Picture yourself lying comfortably beside the warm hearth. The fire has become a bed of glowing embers once more. Their orange light gently flickers across the ceiling. Outside, the rain-washed air feels fresh and clean. The stars shine brighter now that the clouds have gone. The village has become wonderfully still. Only the occasional breeze stirs the leaves. You find yourself growing sleepier with each passing moment. It is easy to understand why evenings before widespread candlelight often encourage deeper rest. Darkness gently reminded the body that the day's work was complete. The world itself seemed to whisper that it was time to sleep. Tomorrow would arrive with the first pale light spreading across the eastern sky. The women would rise once more to greet another day of quiet purpose, steady hands, and patient hearts. But tonight belongs to silence, to warm firelight, to gentle voices, and to the timeless comfort of an ancient evening shared beneath a sky filled with stars. Imagine that autumn has quietly arrived. The long warmth of summer has gently faded, leaving behind cool mornings and evenings that invite everyone a little closer to the fire. The leaves have begun to change their colors, covering the ground with soft shades of gold, amber, and deep red. The air carries the pleasant scent of fallen leaves, damp earth, and freshly cut wood stacked carefully beside each home. You find yourself walking through a small village as the sun slowly lowers toward the horizon. The day's work is almost complete. Women return from nearby gardens with baskets that are no longer filled with flowers, but with late-season vegetables, apples, nuts, and herbs gathered before the first hard frost arrives. Each harvest is precious. Every onion stored today may help feed a family months from now. Every handful of dried beans represents careful planning. Every bundle of herbs hanging beneath the roof is a quiet promise that even winter will bring comfort. Imagine entering one of these homes just as evening begins. A young woman places her basket gently on the table before sorting its contents with practiced care. The smallest apples are placed aside for cooking. The finest ones are saved for sharing during special family meals. Nothing is chosen carelessly. Generations of experience have taught women how to make the most of every harvest. Picture yourself watching as several ears of grain are tied together with simple cord. Some will become flour. A few will be saved as seed for next year's planting. This simple decision connects one autumn to another, quietly linking seasons across many generations. Long before written calendars became common in everyday life, people remembered time through harvests, winters, spring rains, and familiar cycles of nature. Women often became the quiet keepers of those seasonal memories. They remembered which field ripened first, which fruit tree produced the sweetest harvest, which herbs survived harsh winters. These observations accumulated slowly across many years. Imagine sitting beside the hearth once more. Tonight, the fire feels especially comforting. The cool air outside gently presses against the walls, while inside the room remains warm with the scent of burning wood. Children gather close, stretching their hands toward the glowing flames. Their cheeks become rosy from the heat. A grandmother smiles softly as she wraps another blanket around the youngest child. No one complains about the shorter days. They have always lived according to the changing seasons. Darkness arrives earlier now. Evening begins sooner. Life simply adjusts. Picture yourself listening to the conversation. One woman remembers an autumn from many years ago when the harvest was unusually abundant. Another recalls a season when heavy rain delayed the gathering of grain. These stories are not merely memories. They contain practical lessons. Younger listeners quietly absorb them without realizing it. Experience passes gently from one generation to another. No books are opened. No lectures are given. Only conversation. Only shared life. Imagine a little girl sitting beside her mother with a basket of chestnuts collected earlier that afternoon. Together, they carefully remove the outer shells. The child works slowly. Some shells refuse to open. She looks toward her mother, who smiles patiently before showing another method. The little girl tries again. This time, the shell opens. Her face brightens for only a moment before she quietly continues working. No praise is exaggerated. No mistake is treated as failure. Learning belongs naturally to everyday life. Outside, a cool wind moves through the trees. The leaves answer with a gentle rustling sound. Some drift slowly to the ground, covering the narrow paths that wind between the homes. The village grows quieter as darkness settles. A dog circles several times before lying beside the doorway. Nearby, sheep gather close together for warmth. The rhythm of nature gently prepares every living creature for the coming night. Imagine looking upward. The stars seem brighter in the cool autumn air. Without smoke or city lights filling the sky, the heavens stretch endlessly above the village. Many women paused for a few quiet moments before returning indoors, simply to notice the beauty overhead. Though their understanding of the stars differed across cultures and centuries, careful observation remained part of everyday life. Certain stars appeared earlier during autumn. Others slowly disappeared until spring returned. These familiar patterns quietly marked the passing years. Back inside the home, the evening meal has finished. The wooden bowls have been cleaned. The remaining bread has been carefully wrapped in cloth. Nothing is wasted. A young woman checks several clay jars standing against the wall. One contains dried peas. Another holds barley. A third is filled with carefully preserved beans. She smiles with quiet satisfaction. Months of steady work have prepared the household well. Women often carried much of this responsibility. Their careful planning could mean the difference between comfort and hardship during the coldest weeks of winter. Imagine the smell of apples slowly roasting near the hearth. Their sweet fragrance fills the room. Someone sprinkles a few crushed herbs into a simmering pot. Another gently stirs the mixture with a wooden spoon, polished smooth by years of use. These simple evening meals were not extravagant, yet they carried something deeply comforting. Warmth, familiar flavors, shared conversation, the quiet feeling of home. Picture yourself beside an elderly woman who has begun repairing an old wool cloak. The fabric has served many winters already. Rather than replacing it, she patiently strengthens the worn places. Each careful stitch extends its usefulness for another season. Throughout history, women became remarkably skilled at repairing rather than replacing. Cloth required enormous effort to produce. Spinning, weaving, dyeing, and sewing demanded many hours of work. Every finished garment represented patience. Every repair honored that effort. Imagine listening as one of the older children asks a question about winter. Will the snow arrive soon? Will the river freeze? Will the birds return again after the cold season ends? The grandmother answers slowly. She explains how the geese always know when to leave. She describes how certain trees quietly prepare long before the first frost. She reminds the children that every winter, no matter how cold, eventually gives way to spring. These gentle conversations offer more than information. They offer reassurance. Nature follows its rhythms. People simply learn to follow along. Outside, the wind grows calmer. The fire burns lower. Its bright flames settle into glowing embers that cast a warm orange light across the room. Faces become softer in the gentle glow. The youngest children have fallen asleep one by one. An older sister quietly carries her little brother to his sleeping place without waking him. Their mother gently smooths the blanket over his shoulders. No words are needed. The moment itself speaks quietly of love. Imagine resting beside the fading fire. You can hear the occasional crack of cooling wood. Somewhere beyond the walls, an owl begins its nightly call. The stars continue their slow journey across the sky. The village sleeps peacefully beneath the cool autumn night. For countless generations, evenings like this unfolded without bright candles filling every room. Instead, women found warmth in family, wisdom in shared stories, comfort in familiar work, and peace in accepting the gentle rhythm of darkness itself. As your breathing grows slower and your thoughts become quieter, another peaceful evening gently comes to an end. And with the promise of another sunrise waiting beyond the horizon, our quiet journey through history continues. Imagine that winter has now quietly settled across the land. The fields that only a few months ago shimmered with golden grain now rest beneath a pale blanket of frost. The trees stand peacefully, their branches bare against a sky filled with soft gray clouds. The air is crisp, carrying the clean scent of snow, wood smoke, and evergreen leaves. You find yourself approaching a small home just as the last light of the afternoon begins to disappear. During winter, evening arrives much earlier. The women of the household understand this rhythm well. Long before the sun touches the horizon, much of the day's work has already been carefully planned. Water has been carried inside. Firewood has been stacked near the hearth. Grain has been measured. Warm clothing has been shaken free of dust and placed within easy reach. Preparation is one of the quiet skills that history rarely celebrates. Yet it is one of the reasons families endured long winters. Imagine stepping through the low doorway. A pleasant wave of warmth greets you immediately. The hearth burns steadily at the center of the room, its gentle flames reflecting softly against clay walls and wooden beams darkened by years of smoke. Outside, the wind whispers across the frozen ground. Inside, everything feels calm. The youngest children sit close to the fire, stretching their hands toward its comforting warmth. An older daughter carefully turns a pot hanging above the flames, allowing the evening meal to cook slowly. The smell of barley, root vegetables, and dried herbs fills the room. Nothing about the meal is extravagant. Yet after a cold winter's day, its warmth feels deeply satisfying. Imagine watching one of the women remove a bundle of dried mushrooms from a shelf above the hearth. Months ago, they were gathered during the warmer seasons and carefully preserved. Now they become part of tonight's meal. Across many ancient societies, women spent countless hours preparing food that would last through the cold months. Drying, smoking, salting, fermenting. Each method required patience and careful observation. These quiet skills allowed communities to survive when fresh food became scarce. Picture yourself beside an elderly grandmother. She opens a small woven basket filled with pieces of wool in different natural shades: soft white, warm brown, gentle gray. She begins joining them into a simple blanket that will keep a grandchild warm through the remaining weeks of winter. Her fingers move slowly, but confidently. The room is dim. The fire offers only enough light to see nearby. Yet her hands seem to remember every stitch. Experience has become its own kind of sight. Imagine listening carefully. Outside, the wind grows stronger for a few moments. Snow brushes softly against the walls. Then everything becomes still once more. Inside, conversation continues without interruption. One woman remembers a winter from her own childhood when snow reached halfway up the doorway. Another smiles while recalling how children built little figures from packed snow after the first heavy snowfall. A grandfather quietly adds his own memory, but soon returns to listening as the women continue sharing their stories. Many evenings became opportunities for remembering, not because people wished to escape the present, but because memory itself offered companionship. The past remained alive whenever someone chose to tell it. Imagine a young girl sitting beside her grandmother. She is learning how to mend a wool mitten. The thread slips from her fingers. She tries again. This time the stitches become straighter. The older woman nods gently. No hurried instruction, No disappointment, only patient encouragement. For countless generations, evening became the perfect time for teaching skills that required calm rather than speed. Children learned through watching, through repeating, through making small mistakes, and quietly trying again. Outside, darkness has completely covered the landscape. The moon rises above the snowy fields, casting a pale silver light across the ground. Snow reflects even the smallest amount of light, making the world appear softer than before. You step outside for just a moment. The air feels wonderfully cold against your face. Your footsteps make a gentle crunch beneath your feet. The village rests peacefully. Thin streams of smoke rise from several rooftops before disappearing into the clear winter sky. Somewhere nearby, a horse quietly breathes inside its shelter. A dog lifts its head for a moment before settling back to sleep. Nothing disturbs the silence. Picture yourself looking upward. The stars sparkle with remarkable clarity in the cold air. For people living centuries ago, winter skies often appeared breathtakingly bright. Without modern lights, familiar constellations stretched across the heavens with extraordinary detail. Women who stepped outside to gather more wood or check nearby animals naturally became familiar with these nightly companions. Certain stars greeted them every winter. Others slowly returned with spring. The heavens quietly measured the passing years. Returning indoors, you notice that the evening has become even quieter. The youngest child has fallen asleep beside the fire. His mother gently lifts him into her arms. She carries him carefully across the room, placing him beneath a thick blanket without waking him. She pauses for just a moment, brushing a loose strand of hair away from his forehead. It is such a small gesture. Yet gestures like these have been repeated by mothers throughout all of history. Empires rose and disappeared. Kingdoms changed their borders. Languages evolved. But simple acts of care remained beautifully familiar. Imagine another woman quietly arranging tomorrow's supplies. She counts pieces of firewood. She checks the grain jar. She hangs damp gloves closer to the warmth, so they will be dry by morning. These tiny preparations rarely appear in historical records, yet they were essential to everyday life. Many women became remarkable planners because survival depended upon careful attention to ordinary details. Picture yourself noticing the room itself. The walls hold woven baskets made years earlier. Wooden spoons hang neatly from pegs. Clay jars line one corner. Bundles of garlic, onions, and herbs remain suspended from the beams above. Everything has its place. The home reflects years of steady care rather than sudden effort. Outside, gentle snow begins falling once again. Each tiny flake drifts quietly through the moonlight before settling upon the earth. The sound is almost impossible to hear. Nature itself seems to whisper. Inside, the fire slowly becomes a bed of glowing coals. The warmth remains. Conversation fades. One by one, family members prepare for sleep. Blankets are straightened. The last wooden cup is placed upon the table. Someone quietly thanks the fire for its warmth before covering the remaining embers with ash, preserving them for tomorrow morning. This simple act has been repeated across countless generations. Keeping the fire alive through the night saved valuable time and effort at dawn. Imagine lying comfortably beneath a warm wool blanket. Outside, winter wraps the village in peaceful silence. The stars continue shining above the snowy rooftops. The moon slowly crosses the sky. Inside the little home, the gentle glow of the hearth remains the only light. No rows of candles brighten the room. No lamps chase away every shadow. Instead, darkness is welcomed as part of the natural rhythm of life. It reminds everyone that the day's work has ended, that rest has been earned, and that another morning will quietly arrive when the eastern sky begins to glow once more. As sleep gently settles over the household, the ancient world grows wonderfully still. You close your eyes beside the fading fire, knowing that countless women before you found the same quiet comfort in evenings, just like this. And as another peaceful chapter of history softly unfolds, our gentle journey continues. Imagine that the winter night has become wonderfully still. The snowfall has ended, leaving the world wrapped in a quiet blanket of white. Moonlight rests gently upon rooftops, tree branches, and narrow footpaths, making the village seem almost dreamlike. Even the wind has chosen to rest for a while. Inside the small home, the fire has settled into a bed of glowing embers. Its warmth is softer now, but still enough to keep the chill at a comfortable distance. The orange light reaches only a few steps before giving way to gentle shadows. The room feels peaceful, as though time itself has slowed. You find yourself sitting beside an elderly woman who has awakened for a brief moment during the night. She quietly checks the hearth. This small task has become part of her life through many decades. Without speaking, she carefully moves a piece of wood closer to the glowing coals. A tiny flame appears for a moment before settling back into a steady glow. She smiles gently. The fire will remain alive until morning. For countless generations, women became trusted caretakers of the household hearth. It was more than a place to prepare meals. It offered warmth during winter, comfort during illness, and a gathering place where family life quietly unfolded. Imagine the woman sitting back down. She does not return to sleep immediately. Instead, she listens. Outside, somewhere far beyond the village, a wolf howls faintly across the hills. The sound is distant. No one inside the house feels alarmed. The animals are safely sheltered. The doors are secured. The family is together. The howl simply becomes another voice in the great nighttime world. Picture yourself noticing the peaceful rhythm inside the home. A child sighs gently while dreaming. Someone turns beneath a blanket. A log settles in the fire with a soft crack. Then silence returns once more. It is a comforting silence, not empty, simply full of quiet life. As the hours slowly pass, the woman closes her eyes again. Soon she is asleep. The fire continues glowing patiently beside her. Imagine that dawn is still far away. The stars continue moving slowly across the sky. Although ancient people understood the heavens differently from modern astronomers, they carefully observed these nightly patterns. The regular movement of familiar stars offered reassurance. Night always became morning. Winter always became spring. The rhythm of nature remained dependable even when daily life was uncertain. Picture yourself many centuries later in another part of the world. The climate is warmer here. Snow never arrives. Instead, gentle evening breezes carry the scent of flowering trees and damp earth after a brief rain. The homes are different. Some stand upon wooden posts above wet ground. Others are built from woven bamboo and palm leaves. Yet evening brings remarkably familiar moments. Women complete the final tasks before darkness settles. Cooking pots are cleaned. Water jars are covered. Children wash dusty feet before coming indoors. The day's work quietly gives way to peaceful conversation. Imagine sitting beneath a broad tree just outside the home. Several women weave together while the last colors of sunset fade from the western sky. One works with palm fibers. Another shapes long strips of reed. A third carefully twists plant fibers into strong cord. The conversation moves gently from one topic to another. Someone speaks about an upcoming harvest. Another wonders whether relatives from a neighboring village will visit before the next full moon. An older woman remembers how different the village looked when she herself was a little girl. The younger women listen with quiet interest. Every memory becomes another thread connecting generations. Imagine a small child climbing into her grandmother's lap. The little girl asks why the moon changes its shape. The grandmother smiles. She answers according to the understanding passed down through her own family. Her explanation reflects the traditions of her people. Though modern science offers different answers today, these stories helped children make sense of the world around them. They also reminded families that the heavens were filled with mystery and beauty. Picture yourself returning once again to the warmth of the hearth. A young woman is carefully polishing a simple wooden bowl using a soft cloth. The bowl has been used almost every day for many years. It carries small scratches made by countless shared meals. Objects like this often remained with families for generations. Rather than replacing them, people repaired and cared for them with patience. Many women became skilled at preserving household belongings because creating new ones demanded precious time and resources. Nothing useful was discarded without reason. Imagine the pleasant smell drifting through the room. A handful of dried herbs has been placed near the warm stones surrounding the hearth. Their gentle fragrance slowly fills the air. The scent reminds everyone of summer fields, now sleeping beneath winter skies. Even during the darkest months, little reminders of warmer seasons remained close. Picture yourself listening as an older sister quietly teaches a younger brother a simple rhyme. The words help him remember the order of the seasons. Spring follows winter. Summer follows spring. Autumn follows summer. Winter returns once again. Before widespread writing reached everyday life, songs, rhymes, and stories often helped preserve practical knowledge. Women played an important role in keeping these traditions alive within their families. Imagine stepping outside once more. The eastern horizon remains dark, but somewhere beyond it, another sunrise is already making its slow approach. The stars nearest the horizon begin to fade, almost unnoticed. The night is changing, very slowly, almost invisibly. Nature rarely rushes. This gentle pace shaped the evenings of countless generations. Without bright candlelight filling every room, people naturally welcomed longer periods of rest. Bodies followed daylight. Minds slowed with darkness. Families gathered because there were few distractions pulling them apart. Picture yourself beside a mother, quietly repairing a child's wool cap. she notices a small hole near one edge. Instead of setting it aside for another day, she patiently mends it, while the fire still offers enough light. Her daughter watches closely. Soon, she will learn to do the same. Years later, she may teach her own children. The knowledge passes forward almost without anyone noticing. This is how so much of everyday history survived. Not through monuments, not through great speeches, but through gentle repetition inside ordinary homes. Imagine hearing the first rooster call somewhere beyond the village. It is still much too early for full daylight. The sound simply reminds the world that morning is slowly drawing nearer. The woman who tends the hearth opens her eyes. She smiles quietly. Another day is about to begin. Soon she will stir the embers back into flame. Fresh water will be brought inside. Grain will be ground. Bread will be prepared. Children will awaken. Life will continue according to the same comforting rhythm it has followed for generations. Yet for one final peaceful moment, the house remains wonderfully still. The fire glows softly. The stars linger overhead. The family sleeps. And you find yourself surrounded by the timeless calm of an ancient evening, slowly giving way to dawn. Our gentle journey through history is almost complete, but there is still one more quiet chapter waiting beyond the morning light. Imagine that the seasons have turned once again. Many quiet evenings have passed since we first stepped into the ancient world together. Fires have been lit and allowed to fade into glowing embers. Children have grown a little taller. New babies have been welcomed into their families. Older voices have become softer with time, while familiar routines have continued almost unchanged. You find yourself arriving at another village as the afternoon gently comes to an end. The air is mild. A few white clouds drift lazily across the sky, and the golden light of the setting sun stretches across fields where people are finishing the last tasks of the day. Women gather bundles of flax that have been drying in the warm breeze. Nearby, another woman carefully collects eggs before darkness settles. Two young sisters carry a basket together, smiling quietly as they walk along a narrow path leading home. Nothing feels hurried. The sun itself quietly decides the pace. Imagine following them into the village. Smoke rises gently from several rooftops. The familiar scent of baking bread drifts through the cool evening air. Somewhere, someone is roasting onions beside the hearth. The simple aroma spreads slowly through the narrow paths, reminding everyone that supper will soon be shared. A woman pauses beside her doorway. She looks toward the western sky for just a few moments. She notices its changing colors: soft gold, gentle orange, pale rose, deep blue. She has watched this quiet transformation thousands of times throughout her life. Even without speaking, the evening sky tells her that another day has reached its peaceful end. Picture yourself stepping inside her home. The room is modest. A wooden bench stands beside the wall. Several clay jars rest neatly in one corner. Bundles of dried herbs hang from roof beams, filling the air with their gentle fragrance. The hearth burns steadily. Its light reaches the faces gathered nearby, but leaves the far corners wrapped in comforting shadow. Long before candles became common household objects, this balance between light and darkness shaped every evening. People did not expect every corner to be illuminated. They accepted the quiet mystery that darkness brought. Imagine the family sharing their evening meal. Wooden bowls are passed from one person to another. Fresh bread is broken by hand. A simple stew, prepared from grains, vegetables, and herbs, warms everyone after the day's labor. Conversation remains calm. There is no need to rush through the meal. Tomorrow's work will begin early, but tonight there is still time to sit together. A little boy asks his grandmother about a scar on her hand. She smiles. The mark came many years ago while gathering firewood during a harsh winter. The story that follows is not dramatic. It is simply another memory from an ordinary life. Yet to the children listening beside the fire, it becomes part of their family's history. Imagine another home, standing only a short walk away. Inside, a young woman has become a mother for the first time. Her baby sleeps peacefully beneath a carefully woven blanket. She gently rocks the cradle with one hand, while slowly spinning wool with the other. The work is quiet. The rhythm of the spindle matches the gentle movement of the cradle. Outside, crickets begin their evening song. Inside, the baby breathes softly. The young mother smiles without saying a word. Across countless centuries, evenings often became moments when women balanced care and craft together. Neither task interrupted the other. Both belonged naturally to the rhythm of home. Picture yourself sitting beside an older woman weaving a basket. The reeds have been soaked until they are flexible. She bends each one carefully into place. Her hands move slowly. Every crossing strand strengthens the basket. She pauses now and then, not because she is tired, but because careful work welcomes patience. Nearby, a young girl attempts her own small basket. Its shape is uneven. A few reeds slip out of place. The older woman quietly adjusts one corner before handing it back. No criticism, only gentle encouragement. Learning unfolds peacefully, one careful movement at a time. Imagine stepping outside once more. The first stars have begun appearing overhead. A cool breeze moves through nearby trees, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. The village gradually becomes quieter. A shepherd returns with the final sheep. A wooden gate closes softly. Birdsong fades into the sounds of insects greeting the night. For women living in these times, the arrival of darkness did not signal boredom. Instead, it offered something modern life often struggles to find: a natural ending. Work gradually gave way to conversation. Conversation slowly became silence. Silence gently welcomed sleep. Picture yourself looking toward the sky. Without bright candles glowing inside every window, the stars remain astonishingly vivid. Entire generations became familiar with the heavens, simply because they spent time beneath them. A woman carrying water after sunset notices a familiar group of stars rising above the trees. She smiles quietly. Those stars appeared at the same time last year. And the year before that. The heavens become trusted companions. Imagine returning to the warmth of the hearth. The fire burns lower now. Its flames are smaller, but the glowing coals continue releasing gentle warmth. One woman carefully folds freshly woven cloth before placing it inside a wooden chest. Another checks a bundle of dried lavender hanging from the ceiling. Its fragrance still lingers after many months. The smallest child, already half asleep, reaches for his mother's hand. She gently squeezes it. No words are needed. The evening itself has become a language of quiet affection. Picture yourself noticing how little is wasted. A worn wooden spoon is repaired instead of replaced. A torn sleeve receives another careful patch. Leftover bread is saved for tomorrow. Ash from the hearth will later help with cleaning. Nothing useful is ignored. Women often carried the quiet responsibility of making sure every resource served its purpose for as long as possible. This thoughtful care allowed families to endure uncertain seasons with remarkable resilience. Imagine that someone begins telling a story. Not about kings, not about famous battles, but about a wise old neighbor who always planted beans just before the first gentle spring rain. The children listen closely. Simple stories often carried practical lessons hidden inside them. They taught patience, kindness, carefulness, respect for nature. These lessons quietly shaped everyday life far more than grand speeches ever could. Outside, the moon rises slowly above the rooftops. Its pale light settles across the village paths. A cat slips silently between two houses before disappearing into the shadows. The cool evening air grows even calmer. Inside, one by one, family members prepare for sleep. Blankets are spread across simple beds. The final wooden cup is placed upon the table. The fire is carefully arranged so that glowing embers will survive until morning. This final task is performed almost without thought. It has become part of the evening routine through years of quiet repetition. Imagine lying down beside the fading warmth of the hearth. You can hear only the soft crackle of the embers and the distant whisper of wind beyond the walls. The stars continue their slow journey overhead. Another peaceful evening comes to its gentle close. Long before candles filled homes with steady light, women found beauty in these quiet hours. They shared stories, they preserved knowledge, they cared for their families, they prepared for tomorrow. And perhaps most importantly, they welcomed the darkness not as something to fear, but as a gentle companion that reminded them to slow down, to gather close, and to rest. The ancient night grows deeper. The fire glows softly. Your breathing becomes slower. And our peaceful journey through history continues. Imagine that the night has become so peaceful that even the smallest sounds seem to float gently through the air. The village sleeps beneath a sky filled with countless stars. A thin crescent moon hangs low above the horizon, casting a faint silver glow across rooftops, quiet fields, and winding paths. The world feels vast, yet wonderfully calm. You find yourself sitting just outside a modest home where the evening fire has almost faded. Only a few glowing embers remain, their warmth drifting softly into the cool night air. Nearby, a clay pot still holds a little warmth from the evening meal, while bundles of herbs sway gently beneath the edge of the roof whenever the breeze passes. For thousands of years, scenes much like this unfolded across continents. The languages were different. The clothing changed. Homes were built from different materials. Yet the peaceful rhythm of evening remained remarkably familiar. Women completed the final work of the day, gathered with those they loved, and slowly welcomed the quiet that arrived with darkness. Imagine walking through the sleeping village. You move carefully along a narrow path covered with smooth earth. The sound of your footsteps is almost lost beneath the gentle chorus of insects hidden among the grass. A dog briefly raises its head before recognizing the familiar quiet of the night. Nearby, sheep rest together inside their shelter. A horse exhales slowly, sending a faint cloud into the cool air. Everything feels settled. Everything belongs exactly where it should. Picture yourself entering another home nearby. An elderly woman has awakened before everyone else. Not because morning has arrived, but because many older people throughout history often slept in gentle rhythms, waking briefly during the night before returning to rest. She quietly wraps a wool shawl around her shoulders. The room remains almost completely dark. She knows every step without needing bright light. Her hands find the wooden cup beside the hearth. She pours a little water. Then she sits quietly beside the glowing embers. She does nothing for several minutes. She simply watches the gentle orange light. Perhaps she is remembering people who are no longer with her. Perhaps she is thinking about tomorrow's work. Or perhaps she is simply enjoying the peaceful silence that the night offers. History rarely records moments like these, yet they almost certainly happened countless times. Imagine sitting beside her. Neither of you speaks. The fire crackles softly. Outside, leaves rustle for a brief moment before becoming still again. Silence no longer feels empty. Instead, it feels comforting. It allows thoughts to settle gently, just as snow settles across a quiet field. Eventually, the woman smiles to herself. She gently places another small piece of wood onto the embers, making sure there will be enough warmth for the family when morning arrives. This simple act reflects years of quiet responsibility. So much of women's work throughout history involved noticing what others might overlook: a loose roof that needed repair, a nearly empty grain jar, a child beginning to cough, a blanket requiring another careful stitch, a bundle of herbs ready to be stored before rain arrived. These countless observations rarely attracted attention, yet they held daily life together. Picture yourself many centuries away in another land. The night is warmer here. Instead of snow, warm air carries the fragrance of flowering vines. The homes are built from smooth stone surrounding a small open courtyard. The family has finished their evening meal beneath the open sky. Without bright candlelight filling every corner, everyone naturally lifts their eyes toward the heavens. The stars seem endless. An older woman quietly points toward a familiar constellation. She learned its appearance from her own grandmother many years before. Now she shares the same knowledge with a curious granddaughter. She explains when these stars usually rise. She remembers which season they often accompany. Her words blend observation with family tradition. The little girl listens carefully. Long before modern science reached ordinary homes, careful watching of nature helped people understand the passage of time. Women became part of that quiet tradition simply through everyday life. Imagine returning once again to the warmth of the hearth. A young mother sits beside her sleeping child. She gently hums a lullaby so softly that the melody almost blends with the crackling fire. No audience hears the song. No written page preserves its words. Yet songs like this traveled across generations. Many disappeared forever. Others survived because mothers continued singing them, one child after another. The melody becomes another form of memory, another gift quietly passed forward. Picture yourself noticing the objects surrounding the room. A woven basket repaired many times. A wooden spoon, polished smooth by years of use. A clay bowl, carrying tiny marks left by countless shared meals. None of these objects is extraordinary, yet together they tell the story of ordinary life. Women cared for these possessions with remarkable patience because every object represented valuable time, effort, and skill. Replacing something was often far more difficult than repairing it. Imagine that a young girl reaches toward the basket her grandmother finished weaving several evenings ago. She traces its pattern with curious fingers. One day she will weave baskets of her own. Perhaps not perfectly at first, but slowly, patiently, just as every generation before her learned. The knowledge continues quietly. No announcement marks its passing. It simply becomes part of another evening. Outside, the eastern horizon begins changing almost too slowly to notice. The deepest darkness softens into a pale shade of blue. One bright star still shines above the trees. Soon, it too will disappear beneath the growing light. As the morning slowly arrives, birds begin offering the first gentle songs of the new day. A robin calls from a nearby branch. Another answers from farther away. The village remains mostly asleep. Only those accustomed to rising early stir beneath their blankets. The woman beside the hearth notices the changing light. She smiles gently. Another day has arrived. Soon she will awaken the fire. Fresh bread will be prepared. Water will be carried. Children will laugh. Fields will once again fill with quiet work beneath the sun. But for one final peaceful moment, the house remains suspended between night and morning. The embers glow softly. The stars slowly fade. Cool dawn air slips gently through the doorway. You find yourself grateful for the simple beauty of these forgotten evenings. They remind us that before candles became common, before bright lamps extended every waking hour, darkness invited people to gather close, to tell stories, to preserve wisdom, to care for one another, to welcome silence, and finally, to rest. Our long journey through these peaceful evenings is almost complete. Only one final chapter remains, where we will quietly watch the ancient world greet another sunrise, carrying with it the timeless rhythm that women followed for countless generations. Imagine that you have walked through countless evenings. You have crossed gentle rivers beneath fading sunlight. You have stood beside humble homes built from earth, timber, stone, reeds, and woven branches. You have listened to quiet conversations carried on the warm glow of a hearth. You have watched generations of women welcome the arrival of darkness, not with fear, but with quiet acceptance. Now, our journey reaches its final evening. The sky above is clear. The last colors of sunset slowly melt into shades of violet and deep blue. A cool breeze moves softly across the fields, carrying the familiar scent of fresh grass, wood smoke, and distant water. Birds settle into the trees one by one, while the first stars patiently appear overhead. You find yourself walking along the same narrow path that has guided countless footsteps before yours. The earth beneath your feet has been worn smooth by generations. Mothers once carried children along this path. Grandmothers walked here with baskets filled with herbs. Young daughters skipped beside them, asking questions about flowers, birds, and changing seasons. The path remembers them all. As you approach the little home, warm light from the hearth flickers gently through the open doorway. It is not a bright light. It reaches only a short distance into the evening. Beyond it, darkness patiently waits. The family has nearly finished preparing the evening meal. Simple bowls rest upon a wooden table. Fresh bread cools beside the fire. Steam rises slowly from a clay pot, filled with grain, vegetables, and herbs gathered months before and carefully preserved. Nothing about the meal is grand, yet everything about it feels welcoming. Imagine taking your place quietly among them. No one asks where you have come from. It feels as though you have always belonged here. A young mother gently lifts her sleeping child from her lap and lays him beneath a warm blanket. His tiny hand briefly reaches toward hers before relaxing once more. Across thousands of years, countless mothers have shared this same gentle moment. No written record remembers their names. No monument celebrates their evenings. Yet their quiet acts of care shaped families, communities, and generations. Picture yourself watching an elderly grandmother. Her silver hair catches the warm glow of the fire. She slowly reaches for a spindle resting beside her chair. She turns it only a few times before setting it aside again. There is no need to finish every task tonight. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise. She has learned something that only many years can teach. Some work belongs to today. Some work can patiently wait. The younger women nearby continue folding cloth, checking baskets of grain, and placing tools where they will be easy to find in the morning. These quiet preparations may seem ordinary, yet they represent a remarkable understanding of daily life. Women remembered which herbs still remained, which child had outgrown a pair of shoes, how much flour was left, whether another bundle of firewood would be needed before the week's end. These careful observations held families together. They rarely appeared in history books, but history itself rested upon them. Imagine listening as conversation gently fills the room one last time. No one tells stories of distant kings tonight. Instead, they remember ordinary things. The year the apple tree produced more fruit than anyone expected. The spring when birds returned unusually early. The child who laughed every time snowflakes landed on his nose. The grandmother who always sang while kneading bread. These memories may seem small, yet together they become the true story of everyday life. History is not built only by rulers and armies. It is also built by quiet evenings shared around humble fires. Outside, the moon slowly rises above the rooftops. Its silver light spreads across fields resting peacefully beneath the night sky. Without rows of candles glowing inside every home, the stars remain brilliantly clear. Women often pause to look upward before returning indoors. They recognized familiar constellations. They noticed changing seasons. They quietly observed the dependable rhythm of the heavens. The sky reminded them that every evening, no matter how dark, would eventually welcome another dawn. Picture yourself stepping outside for one final moment. The village rests peacefully. Only the occasional crackle of a distant hearth reaches your ears. The cool air feels fresh upon your face. Nearby trees sway gently beneath the evening breeze. Somewhere beyond the fields, water flows patiently through its ancient course. The stars continue their silent journey above. They watched over these women. They watch over us still. Imagine returning inside. The fire has burned lower now. Only glowing embers remain. One woman carefully covers them with a light layer of ash, preserving their warmth until morning. This simple act has been repeated for countless generations. Tomorrow, those same embers will awaken into new flames. Breakfast will be prepared. Children will laugh. Water will be carried. Fields will once again fill with quiet work beneath the rising sun. Life will continue, just as it always has. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson these ancient evenings offer. Before candles became common, darkness gently reminded people that every day has its natural ending. There was wisdom in allowing work to slow. There was comfort in gathering together. There was beauty in conversation that required no audience. There was peace in accepting the quiet rhythm of the night. Women did not simply endure these evenings. They shaped them. With steady hands, they prepared meals that nourished families. With patient hearts, they taught children through example rather than instruction. With careful attention, they preserved food, clothing, tools, songs, remedies, and traditions. With gentle voices, they carried memories from one generation to the next. Most of their names have been forgotten, yet their influence remains woven into the story of humanity itself. Every loaf of bread shared beside a hearth, every lullaby softly sung beneath the stars. Every repaired garment, every comforting embrace, every story whispered before sleep. These quiet moments became the invisible threads holding communities together across thousands of years. Now, as the fire grows dim and the room settles into peaceful silence, you find yourself growing wonderfully sleepy. Outside, the stars continue shining across the endless sky. Inside, warm embers glow softly beneath their blanket of ash. The family breathes quietly in their sleep. Tomorrow's dawn is already making its slow journey toward the horizon, though no one feels the need to hurry its arrival. Imagine closing your eyes. The scent of wood smoke lingers gently in the air. The warmth of the hearth surrounds you. The soft sounds of the night become more distant with every slow breath. The ancient evening, so ordinary to those who lived it, has become something precious to us. A quiet reminder that history is not only found in great cities or famous names. It also lives in peaceful homes, humble routines, gentle kindness, and evenings shared around a simple fire. And as sleep finally carries you into the silence of the night, the ancient world quietly fades with you, leaving only the comforting glow of its timeless stories. Good night.